been following the Long Island serial killer case, then I'm sure you know that Rex Heuermann, the suspected Long Island serial killer, has been charged with 7 murders already. So he's been charged with the murder of Maureen Brainard-Barnes, Megan Waterman, Melissa Barthelemy, Amber Costello, they were known as the Gilgo Four, and then also with Sandra Costilla, Jessica Taylor, and Valerie Mack. So we were all wondering, will he be charged with the murder of Asian Doe, who's yet to be identified, with Karen Vergara, not yet charged with her murder, and how about Peaches and Baby Doe? Well, there was huge news in April of 2025 where they actually identified Peaches and Baby Doe as Tanya Jackson and Tatiana Marie Dykes.
The IGG team combines crime scene DNA with traditional genealogy research and historical records to generate leads to identify unknown DNA, which is what happened in this particular case.
And guess what? Rex Heuermann is not going to be charged with the murder of Tanya Jackson or Baby Doe, Tatiana. In fact, it would be Peaches, Tanya's former partner, and the father of Baby Doe, who has now been charged with their murders.
Please note that this content is for adults only. Viewer discretion advised. If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe, like, and share.
So that's what we're going to be discussing at length today. I just wanted to start here because it's just an unbelievable case. It's complex, it's big, and one can't quite imagine that in one area, so many people disposed of victims' remains. Like, oh my goodness, I know that there can be coincidences, but this is not really one that I expected, where Rex Heuermann operated in a certain area. So did John Bitrolf, and we'll talk about him today as well. And now there's also this guy, Andrew Dykes, who also allegedly then committed murder and dismemberment, and just so happened to place the victim's remains in similar places where Rex Heuermann had placed victims' remains. Whoa, that is a lot. So we will have to look at a map, of course, so that we can just try to make sense of all of this. But first, I just wanted to show you the 7 murders that Rex Heuermann's been charged with. Now, if you've never followed this case with me before, I do have a whole playlist. You can expand the description box, just click more below this video, and there's a case background write-up, and then I've linked the playlist for you, and on it, you can see we've done lots of deep dives, and we've followed every update along the way. I've also had the opportunity to interview District Attorney Ray Tierney in Suffolk County, so that was such an honor, so go check that out if you haven't seen it yet. Now, Peaches and Baby Doe were identified as Tanya Denise Jackson and her daughter Tatiana Marie Dykes in April of 2025. And I'm sure we all thought at the time, because we watched the press conference together, it's also on the playlist, whoa, like now we're one step closer to them getting justice for whatever happened to them. And now we learn, oh my goodness, of course, because Tanya had been dismembered. So yeah, that's like homicide moves, right? Oh my goodness, so now her former partner was arrested after a grand jury indictment, and he's waiting to be extradited, and he's charged with her murder. And shame. I hope that he's also then, what happened to Baby Doe? We don't know yet, right?
66-year-old Andrew Dykes appeared before a judge on Thursday in Florida, charged with homicide in a Nassau County, Long Island case.
I like to go to New York and defend myself.
Acknowledged by detectives in Nassau on Friday.
There has been an apprehension in Florida and related to a Nassau County homicide.
The arrest warrant was in relation to 2 connected cases. Tanya Jackson's headless body was found near Hempstead Lake State Park, near Lakeview, in 1997. The remains of her 2-year-old daughter, Tatiana Dykes, were found in Gilgo Beach 14 years later in 2011.
So the update now is that this is not linked to suspect Rex Heuermann. So what I'm going to do, we're going to go over this, right? But first, let me just show you the map just so that you can see what on earth I'm talking about. So this all happened in this Long Island area in New York, right? And so if we go here, Rex Heuermann lived in Massapequa Park, and he was an architect who worked on 5th Avenue in New York. And so you could see already here, here's the point, Peaches, her dismembered remains were found in a green bin and they never found her head. And some more of her remains were found along this beach over here, which is interesting then if you then look along this beach, and Rex Heuermann used to work along this beach, so that's why we all thought that he might be connected to her murder one day, but now he isn't. So let's look at whose murders he's been charged with, right? So we've got Amber Costello, Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Maureen Brainard-Barnes. That's why these were known as the Gilgo Four. And then we still have Asian Doe, who is not yet identified.
It's been a challenge to identify this victim known as Asian Doe. He was a biological male, 17 to 23 years old when he was killed, but he either identified as a woman or was known as a woman in the sex trade. Like the other victims, he worked as a sex worker.
He's been charged with the murder of Jessica Taylor, not Baby Doe, that's not unlinked. Yes, Valerie Mack, whose skull, hands, and foot were found along here. Not Shannon Gilbert. And if we zoom out a little bit, here, if we go to this area, wait. He's not been charged with the murder of Karen Vergara yet. What happened to her, right? These purple dots, these are victims of John Bitrolf, who's already been convicted, and since Rex Heuermann was arrested, his defense has been challenging the evidence, and it turns out that no, Rex Heuermann's DNA was not found on Colleen McNamee. So yeah, John Bitrolf remains in prison. So if we look here, Valerie Mack, that's a murder that Rex Heuermann was charged with, and Jessica Taylor. So you can see he dismembered victims and placed them in 2 different places. That's why this is so shocking. Like, whoa, Peaches was also in 2 different places, right? Over a span of many years where they found some and not the rest of her, and then later they found the rest of her. Same with these cases. So it's just amazing. That's somebody else, right? So we've got all of that here. And we've also got Sandra Costilla was found over here. Rex Heuermann's also been charged with her murder. So you can see, look at this map. Oh my goodness, there's a lot happening there. Okay, so what we're going to do today is look at this update here. So let's read this together. This is from an article from Newsday. I'm linking all my sources below for you. So it says, a Florida man has been arrested and charged with murder in the 1997 killing of Tanya Denise Jackson, the long unidentified Gilgo Beach victim previously known as Peaches, whose remains were found in Nassau County within miles of her toddler daughters. Shame. I mean, mother and daughter also placed not far apart, but like apart. That's so weird as well, according to sources and court records. Now, when I look at the documents that I have, which I'm sure I don't have them all, but I'm like, where does it say that this guy is most definitely charged with her murder? But every outlet in New York is reporting this. So this seems to be, he is connected to the murder of Tanya Jackson. And let's find out a little bit more here what they say. So they say, a Florida man, this guy, Andrew Dykes, has been arrested and charged with the murder of Tanya Denise Jackson, right? Andrew Dykes, 66, of Tampa, so Tampa, Florida, was indicted on a murder charge in Nassau County Wednesday, a source familiar with the investigation told Newsday. He's being held in the Hillsborough County Jail on a fugitive warrant from New York until he's cleared for extradition, records show. Dykes, the biological father of the toddler whose remains were found, Tatiana Marie Dykes, made an initial appearance in Hillsborough County Court in Florida on Thursday, court records show. He was arrested 3 hours after a grand jury indicted him, a source said. Okay, I hate it when they say like on Wednesday, on Thursday. Just say the date. This was posted on December 4th of 2025. So there's a picture of this guy. And so they say Jackson, a Gulf War veteran from Mobile, Alabama, was previously known as Gilgo Beach homicide victim Jane Doe No. 3, or Peaches, whose mutilated torso was discovered in a wooded area at Hempstead Lake State Park in Lakeview on June 28th of 1997. This is such a long time. So I'm really glad that this is the outcome now, because now finally we're on the road to justice for Tanya and her daughter Tatiana, right? So, okay, so it says officials said at an April news conference, we watched that together, right? So toddler Tatiana was I hate the word dumped, but okay, dumped along Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach in Suffolk County around the same time. Though her skeletal remains would not be found until April of 2011, the Nassau County Homicide Squad's commanding officer said in April. Detective Captain Stephen Fitzpatrick described Jackson, who was last seen alive just days before the initial discovery of her remains in June of 1997, as a single mother who's believed to have worked as a medical assistant. The FBI made a rough identification of the mother and daughter in 2022, Fitzpatrick said. In 2023, they began to obtain additional DNA information and notified the family last year. Fitzpatrick said in April that the father of the child, identified in birth records as Dykes, had already been questioned by detectives and was cooperating with the investigation. He declined at the time to say if the father, who did not live with Jackson, was a suspect in the slayings. Okay, you see, they're keeping it very close to the vest at this point. So I'm just keeping the possibility open that what if he's charged with somebody else's murder? That'll be shocking too. But at this moment in time, all the sources of all the local news are saying that he's charged with her murder. So it says, Texas Department of Health records show Tatiana was born there to Jackson and Dykes on March 17th of 1995. Both parents were members of the Army living in Texas at the time, records show. Dykes moved from Brooklyn in May 2000, according to property records. Fitzpatrick said because mother and child lived alone and she had a transient background in the Army, a long time passed without her being reported missing. I do remember at the time they announced this, everybody was asking in the chat, why did her boyfriend, husband, partner, why did he not report her missing? Do you remember that? A lot of you guys asked that, and it's like, oh, maybe, oh, now we know why. Because he's a suspect. Okay. The remains of the mother and daughter, who were living in Brooklyn at the time they were killed, were buried earlier this year at Alabama State Veterans Memorial Cemetery at Spanish Fort near Mobile in Alabama, records show. Nassau police said they had no clue who Jackson was when her body, identifiable only by an abdominal scar believed to be from a cesarean birth, and the tattoo of a bitten peach on her chest, was found in a green Rubbermaid container, discarded in a wooded area of the park by a man attending a fishing clinic with his young daughter and her friends. So that's who discovered it on June 28th of 1997, Newsday reported at the time. Jackson had been dismembered and decapitated when the man discovered the unclothed remains in a bag inside the container on the west side of Lake Drive, about 200 yards north of Peninsula Boulevard. A day later, police said they believed the remains belonged to an 18 to 30-year-old woman. Now, the interesting thing is, do you remember Rex Heuermann's notes? You know, his little notes to himself, his bullet points of what he should do to not only target the victim, but what he should do to prepare himself to get enough rest, okay, and to the body afterward to try not to get caught. What he mentioned there was to destroy tattoos. So that's also why we thought, oh, maybe it started with that. Maybe he realized, whoa, like Peaches being so in the news and everything. Many of us thought that Peaches could be one of Rex Heuermann's victims, and that he learned from that experience to be like, damn, destroy tattoos, right? But now that he's not linked, well, interesting. Still, maybe he learned from this case, maybe he watched it in the news, or maybe it's just something that he thought to write down, you know, when they document their own things and think they deleted things, and then here comes the Celebrite guys, the digital forensics experts, and they're like, actually, we found your little note, sir. So if you don't know about that, it's on the playlist. We've gone over that lots before and all the documents and everything. Jackson had been, as they said, dismembered, decapitated. Suffolk prosecutors working on the Gilgo Beach homicide investigation announced in 2016 that DNA testing done by Nassau police previously established the woman was the mother of the toddler found more than 20 miles away in Suffolk County, closer to where additional skeletal remains of the mom would be found near Jones Beach in Nassau County. A source said that Suffolk County law enforcement was not involved in Wednesday's arrest. 2 gold bracelets were found with Jackson's extremities at Jones Beach, according to a case report shared in a public database, and a 16-inch gold-colored chain and 2 gold-colored hoop earrings were on her daughter's remains, which were found closer to other sets of human remains at Gilgo Beach. Rex A. Heuermann, 62, of Massapequa Park, has been charged with murder in 7 killings, including 6 women whose remains were found near the toddler in 2010 and 2011. Heuermann has pleaded not guilty to all the charges. Jackson's peach tattoo was possibly made at a studio in Connecticut, police previously said. Sheets found along with the body were likely purchased at an Abraham and Straus department store, which had locations in Brooklyn and Hempstead that became Macy's stores shortly before the killings, police said at the time. The FBI announced in 2022 the mother and daughter were possibly related to a man who died decades earlier in Mobile, Alabama, where police say Jackson was raised. So just one more time, just look at this map here. Like, let me just show you how close Baby Doe was. So Peach's remains were found in that bin, that green Rubbermaid container, in this area here, right? And so here it says Hempstead. So in this, if we just go here, okay, so that's there. And then more of her remains were found along this beach area. And look, I want to go here. This is so hectic to think that Rex Heuermann allegedly operated in this area, meaning Valerie Mack's skull, hands, and foot were found in this area. And then Baby Doe, Tatiana Marie Dykes, was found here. And shame. What happened to Baby Doe? Because it doesn't seem like Andrew Dykes has been charged with her murder. Maybe he will be at some point, or maybe they just can't prove how this baby died. Maybe he just placed her there and left her there. Shame. I don't know. It just all sounds very scary. But just to think, whoa, like look at that. Okay, so now let's continue to look at some of these updates. So I wanted to give you a little bit of this background information as well, where it says long suspected to be victims. So this is just a previous article, so it's got a little bit more information, from the background. It says long suspected to be victims of the Gilgo Beach serial killer, law enforcement has successfully identified the remains of a mother and her child murdered in Nassau County, New York in 1997. Peaches, as she came to be called due to her tattoo, has been identified as 26-year-old Tanya Denise Jackson, a U.S. Army veteran living in Brooklyn at the time of her murder. Her daughter, Tatiana Marie Dykes, was also identified. Tatiana was born on March 17th of 1995, making her approximately 2 years old when she was murdered, they say. Okay, then charge him with it. Charge Andrew Dykes with it or what? The reality is our work has just begun, said Nassau County, hold on, we've got to expand this, District Attorney Ann Donnelly. Knowing the identities of the mom and little baby is just the first step to help us solve their murders. In fact, there have been a lot of steps in this particular murder case, with more and more being discovered as time went on, until finally the names of the victims were uncovered in early 2024, despite not being released to the public until last week. So, they obviously have DNA evidence, right? They found Andrew Dykes' DNA on especially Tanya Jackson's remains, right? That's what I'm thinking. The bodies of Tanya and Tatiana were found 14 years apart. In June of 1997, the torso of a then unidentified woman was found inside a container in the woods at Hempstead Lake State Park in Nassau County. Her remains were in a plastic tub covered by plastic garbage bags, and she was found with a maroon towel and dark floral pillowcase, all that can hold a lot of DNA. Her head, both arms, and both legs were severed, but were not found with the torso. On her left breast, she had a tattoo depicting a heart-shaped peach with a bite taken out of it and 2 drops falling from its core, which resulted in the nickname Peaches. Police recovered the extremities of a woman dubbed Jane Doe 3, along with an unidentified toddler near Ocean Parkway on Long Island in Suffolk County, New York. 4 years later, in 2015, DNA testing linked the extremities originally identified as Jane Doe 3 as belonging to Peaches, and revealed Peaches as the mother of the unidentified toddler. This is like a years-long investigation, like to take so long to not only find all these scattered remains, that's horrifying, but then also to try to find family members, do the DNA testing, and to get to this point is really amazing. Firstly, in 2020, the FBI joined the case. Nassau police gave DNA samples to the FBI, who turned over some to Othram for DNA testing. They said previous attempts at building DNA profiles from the remains had failed, but Othram scientists were able to refactor the existing data for the unknown woman to build a usable, comprehensive genealogical profile, explained Dan Miller, Director of Customer Service at Othram. After successfully completing the testing process for both mother and baby, the DNA profiles were delivered to FBI's in-house forensic genetic genealogy team. By 2022, the FBI came up with a list of possible relatives. The team took DNA samples from those of interest and were ultimately able to confirm Tanya and Tatiana's identities in early 2024, but we only found about it in April of 2025.
Having their identities helps us now say to the public, please, if you knew Tanya, if you worked with her, if you met her at the grocery store, you had an interaction with her, please contact us and let us know.
Anybody who's in the military that might have served with her and remembers her, please get in contact with us. Did you serve with her in the military? Were you a neighbor or a co-worker during her time here in Brooklyn? Maybe you saw them at a medical appointment where she worked, or were her friend. We want to hear from you.
Law enforcement announced the identities publicly, for the first time, April 23rd of 2025. Gilgo connection, it says, due to the timing of the murders and where the bodies were found, Tanya and Tatiana have always been suspected to be victims of the Gilgo Beach serial killer. Suspect Rex Heuermann was arrested in July of 2023 and charged with the murder at that point, 3 women, now 7, while being suspected of more. However, Stevens Fitzpatrick, a Nassau County Police homicide detective, is hesitant to make the connection. He said, although Tanya and Tatiana have commonly been linked to the Gilgo Beach serial killings, because of the timing and locations of their recovered remains, we are not discounting the possibility that their cases are unrelated from the investigation. And we were all like, what? Oh, damn. Okay. Wow. Truly unrelated at this point. My goodness. I can't wait to read your comments to hear what you think about this. They also said it's worth noting that the Gilgo Beach serial killer primarily targeted 20-something females who advertised their sex work on Craigslist. It's believed that Tanya was a medical assistant at the doctor's office at the time of her murder. So it didn't quite fit, but damn, like the locations, the dismemberment, the 2 different locations of the remains, that definitely seemed like Rex Heuermann's MO, right? Okay, I'm going to link this article if you want to read the rest of it yourself. Also, now we're going to just quickly look at this little update while we are here discussing this case as well. You know, all the surrounding cases too. So it says, accused Gilgo Beach serial killer Rex Heuermann cleared in brutal 1994 death of 8th Long Island sex worker. Now it says, accused Gilgo Beach serial killer Rex Heuermann, who is charged in the gruesome murders of 7 young sex workers on Long Island, has been cleared in the strangulation death of an 8th woman. DNA testing determined that Heuermann was not tied to the 1994 slaying of Colleen McNamee, who had been beaten, strangled, and discarded of or dumped near Floyd William Parkway in Shirley, according to records from the Suffolk County Medical Examiner's Office, reviewed by the Post. Shame. Okay, so John Bittrolf was charged with her murder. And so we were all wondering, I'm sure, right? We discussed this along the way of like, could John Bittrolf not really be the guy? Is Rex Heuermann actually the guy who committed those murders, or what? What's going on here? But no, there's no DNA of his linked to Colleen McNamee. So John Bittrolf remains the convicted killer of Rita Tangredi and Colleen McNamee. It says a comparison between cybergenetics developed profile, unknown male A, and the DNA profile of Rex Heuermann was performed, because there was unknown male DNA found on Colleen McNamee's remains. And so everybody wondered, because imagine if that turned out to be Rex Heuermann. That would be interesting. Turns out that's not the case. Assuming that the unknown male A profile is a mixture without any allelic dropout and strictly based on possible genotypes present in the profile, Rex Heuermann is excluded as unknown male A, the report concluded. The DNA test was conducted following a request by convicted killer John Bittrolf, who was found guilty in 2017 of killing McNamee, and Rita Tangredi, whose battered body was found in East Patchogue in 1993. Bitrolf tried to pin McNamee's murder on Heuermann, but the DNA cleared him. This is John Bitrolf. Ironically, it's DNA evidence that linked the accused serial killer to 7 other bodies. Valerie Mack, 24. Jessica Taylor, 20. Megan Waterman, 22. Melissa Barthelemy, 24. Maureen Brainard-Barnes, 25. Sandra Costilla, 28. And Amber Lynn Costello, 27. Their bodies were dumped between 1993 and 2010, but the murders went unsolved until ex-NYPD bigwig Rodney Harrison took over as Suffolk County Police Commissioner and reopened the case, leading to Heuermann's arrest in July of 2023. Investigators then carried out 2 thorough searches of Heuermann's home in Massapequa Park, which led to the alleged discovery of a Grizzly planning document authored by the accused killer. Remember we talked about that earlier? Including a lessons learned section. The Manhattan architect, who has denied that he was behind the gruesome killings, has since been held without bail while the case crawls towards trial. Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney has said that he believed Heuermann may have been behind the deaths of other bodies found in that area across Long Island, but has only charged him with 7 so far. So we were all anticipating, wow, when is he going to be charged with the murder of Peaches and Baby Doe? No, he isn't. It's somebody else. Oh my goodness. Meanwhile, Bitrolf, a 58-year-old former carpenter from Manorville, is serving a prison sentence of 50 years to life for the murders of Tangredi, 31, and McNamee, 20. He was considered a likely suspect in some of the Gilgo Beach cases early on until DNA cleared him of those brutal murders. So, those are those updates. That's pretty much what I have for you today. I hope that there will be justice for all of these victims, and I really hope that Asian Doe will also be identified at some point. That is now the only unidentified person in this area that has been previously potentially linked to this Long Island serial killer case, right? Shame. And I wonder if Rex Heuermann will be charged with the murder of Karen Vergata, because that's another question I have. We have so many questions, right? I will keep you posted. I'm trying to keep this short and simple, just so that you have the update. Also, the documents really don't say much. I have some of these documents. Let me quickly show you this. They just really don't say much about the charges that he's facing. This just says criminal report affidavit, Hillsborough County, Florida. And of course, this is for Andrew Dykes. And it says the charges listed on the out-of-state warrant is or are murder 2. The defendant fled the jurisdiction of the issuing agency or state of New York. The defendant is charged with a crime that is punishable by death or a term of imprisonment exceeding 1 year. Okay, so that's pretty much all that we have on here. And if we look at this inmate arrest details, inmate Andrew Dykes. And my goodness, that looks so scary with this like star over his face. I mean, yeah, that's just their watermark, but wow, okay. And yeah, 66 years old. And fled the area. I wonder exactly when he fled the area. Like, what the hell? Did he know they wanted to arrest him? What? There was an arrest warrant and he fled the area and they'd be looking for him and they found him in Florida? Interesting. So, I will keep you posted. If there's any updates, any more confirmation, once he's extradited, whatever happens here, now we have another person to follow who is accused of murdering a mother, his partner, and maybe also his daughter? Wow, so that is so sad. But I'll keep you posted. I hope that there's justice for all of these victims. And again, if you've never checked out my Long Island serial killer playlist, do check it out because there's a lot there to catch up on. And we've looked at the case from many different angles, right? Okay, in the meantime, stay safe and I'll see you in the next one.